Hello there, lads and ladies. Welcome back to a more in-depth review. Now, today, I want to talk about Godzilla X Kong, Rise of the New Empire. I've seen it yesterday, and I've booked it again for Thursday. I'm going to watch it again because it's fantastic. After watching it the second time, I've gotten a chance to have more of an in-depth look at it. I was so excited the first time that I kind of missed over a couple of certain things, like the characters. I'll start off with the opening. We have a brilliant opening with Kong basically running from these beasts. We don't know the name of these titans yet. They're probably going to be called something like wilder wolves or something like that, like a wild form of rabid dog of some kind. We're shown Kong's immense intelligence, being able to set traps, not only affecting the wolves that chase him, but also Scar King's minions that chase him later on, that will come into play at some point, which Zuko is able to also help out in a certain aspect, which I really want to touch on with Zuko, because he's more intelligent than we care to think, really, because not only was he able to manipulate Kong to the point of leading him to this little lake where he actually fought this 20-foot water dragon type serpent thing. We still don't know the name of it, unfortunately, but it looked cool, looked very cool, although Kong was able to defeat it quite easily in a certain sense. It's quite upsetting to see that most of the screen time went to Kong, really, in this film, because although it says Godzilla X Kong, it feels like Godzilla's a bit of a side character in his own series, basically. I don't know. I mean, I'm all for Kong, he's earned my respect, basically. He's basically becoming this key figure in the Hollow Earth, basically. But now that I think he has finally found his family and, overthrown a dictator of, the Kong species, I think it's right to say that he can be kind of sidelined a little bit, just for a little bit. We're not saying goodbye to him forever, but we kind of go to see a Godzilla film to see Godzilla. He is the main focal point, really, and it just feels like, yeah, he had balls this season. He had balls this film. Basically, he was able to go out and destroy two titans, and really hold off Shimu very well. I mean, granted, a little bit of help from Mothra, especially when Godzilla got frozen a little bit by Shimo. If it wasn't for Mothra coming in to blast him in the face with from the beat of her wings, it's safe to say Godzilla could have been frozen, just like Monster Zero was, Ghidorah was in King of the Monsters. And I don't care what people say that he was frozen during the Ice Age after Shimo did this and that. Basically, I still think Shimo could easily trounce Ghidorah, no matter what. I mean, if anything, Shimo could easily bring Ghidorah to a stalemate by freezing him, basically. We all know this, and you know this, basically. No point in arguing it. But anyway, the characters were very decent. It's nice to see Bernie come back, basically. He was kind of like the comedic character in the last film, and in this one, he's got more of a... I kind of like Trapper's character a little bit more now that I see more of him. If you don't know the actor, he played this one character in Downton Abbey, basically. He was a good actor, fantastic actor. So it was kind of weird to hear him actually speak with an Australian accent, really, but, it just shows the depth of his acting capability, basically. But, yeah, it was just so nice to see Trapper basically be the teeter point for him and Bernie's interactions, basically, because Bernie is obviously running his podcast because he wants people to, know of the Titans and the things that they do, basically. He wants to be heard. He wants to be, spoken about in a certain sense. He just wants to be heard. And Trapper is there basically just to let him know that the people that they've discovered, the Iwi people who live under the Hollow Earth, has that really gone well for most other natives that have come into contact with mankind and, the progressiveness of mankind. From disease and famine to, rapid growth with Christianity or religion with specific cultures, basically, that has just completely shifted their way of thinking. I mean, look at the Native American people, for goodness sakes. Most of their people were nearly eradicated throughout most of the 18th century and the 17th century, and most of that was, I think, if one thing, they kind of needed to evolve with the times to be able to survive. That's why missionaries were kind of a godsend to some of these people. It was either learn a new religion and learn to evolve with that, or basically your whole race is just wiped out because you don't follow a specific religion, really. But I'm getting off topic. All I'm saying is that Bernie kind of sees from another point of angle when Trapper talks to him about, like, you know, maybe bringing this to the public and letting them know that this world down here exists is not the brightest idea, especially when you've got the higher ups breathing down the humans' necks on taking over operations within the monarch monitoring stations in Hollow Earth, because humans, we like to take control and think that we're in control, but we're not half the time, and when we do think we're in control, we lose control quite easily, basically. So the human side of things, of Gia basically learning to basically be like this to and fro between the Titans, I really liked that. I really liked that it wasn't like shoved down our throats, that, you know, I'm kind of happy that there's not twins involved in this in a certain sense, because as we know, like, the two Mothra twins are meant to basically be the representation of Mothra. They're meant to speak on her behalf for the humans in a certain sense. But I like that Gia is not able to speak. I mean, of course, the actual actress cannot speak. She's like deaf and mute, basically. But I like that it's all done telepathically, basically. So it's more like an open-ended type situation where the only form of communication she does have is sign language. But with the Titans and with the Iwis, there is telepathy there, basically. I do like that side of it with the humans. But when it comes to the kaiju, yeah, I feel like Godzilla was very underused in this film, even though he kicked ass a lot. I feel like they made him more powerful and more, like, able to kick ass to kind of balance out the fact that we saw more of Kong than we did of Godzilla. I mean, this is their cheapest film at like 135 million. It doesn't sound like that cheap, but compared to the others with the other productions that they've done, it is rather cheap, basically. But it doesn't matter. They've already outsold most of it in the first weekend at like 194 million, and it's just going to keep rising, basically. I'm happy. We're getting more monsterverse films. That's all I care about, basically. And it's nice that it's finally starting to grow a franchise in the West, basically, as big as it is in the East. And I think it's the number one ranked film in China, not China, India, I believe, at the moment, which is very nice. But yeah, it was just a bit underwhelming to see very little bit of Godzilla. I was just very shocked. The Egyptian scene, I think, was probably my second favourite, behind the Hollow Earth fight scene, basically, like where Godzilla is fighting with Kong, and you have Mothra come in at the last second to basically remind Godzilla that there is a bigger threat, basically. When Godzilla gets into action, he kind of goes like red vision, he sees red. It's kind of hard for him to stop when it comes to certain things like that. So I'm glad that Mothra is still like that one Titan that he respects, that he is able to just stop and think, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from, basically. You know, it's a very good symbiotic relationship that I hope Kong can have with Shimo, since Shimo is now basically an ally to Kong as we go further along. Hopefully Shimo can help Kong and the other apes basically better Hollow Earth for not only themselves but the other Titans as well, basically, and the humans, since technically the apes are the protector of humanity in a certain sense. Whereas Shimo was seen as like this destructive force that was used for the first Ice Age, I still believe was Scar's fault in a certain sense. I think he had something to do with that. Although it's hard to say because that was like millions and millions of years ago. So it might have been to do with Ghidorah, if I think about it, because Ghidorah is an alien, and knowing Godzilla, if Godzilla is as old as, like, if he predates the Ice Age, it's safe to say Ghidorah predates the Ice Age as well. So that's probably the case. I think Ghidorah is the reason why the Ice Age happened. I think Shimo and Ghidorah had a battle, they were locked in it, and it had to cause an Ice Age for Shimo to finally overcome Ghidorah, basically, in a certain sense. Because if you think about it, Ghidorah was able to create storms, and Shimo had to go big ups, basically. She had to basically overcome all of her power to basically freeze this motherfucker in the Antarctic. And that's probably why he remained there. Like, that's why Shimo kept that area so freezing cold for all eternity, because of Monster Zero, basically, being as powerful as he was, in a certain sense. But it's kind of hard to say. I feel like he definitely teamed up with her. I feel like Godzilla teamed up with Shimo to be able to get that done. But yeah, that whole scene in Hollow Earth was just beautiful. It was wonderful how the humans still had a part to play with the anti-gravity, basically coming into contact with the other Titans. How the two pillars basically meshed into one another in a certain sense. It was so nice to see that their part did play a big role in handling certain titans in a certain sense, like when the apes fell to the ground after the gravity finally reset itself. That kind of took out the other ape titans who were following Scar King at the time. And Mothra itself, she helped out immensely, literally webbed up three of them to a rock and a boulder, basically, just taking them out, no problem. Assisted Godzilla from nearly getting frozen to death. She is a ride or die kind of woman, and I appreciate that. You know, we appreciate women who are ride or die kind of ladies around here, especially our Titans, you know. But yeah, and then ends up going to Rio de Janeiro, lovely city, lovely people, nice girls, and all that stuff. But anyway, we go to the beach. It's nice and frozen thanks to Shimo being controlled by Scar King to basically form a cloud that is going to cause a second ice age, mostly due to her being forced by him. I still don't know how he was able to get the crystal from her. I feel like it's a crystal from Shimo's body in one way, shape, or form, because he must have planned something to get that to be able to control her, because I can't see him winning a fight against Shimo. There's no way. He could barely handle Kong and Godzilla. Godzilla had Scar King on the run for most of that fight in Rio de Janeiro. But to be fair, he is souped up. But then again, even when he wasn't like pink radiation Godzilla, you know, like Super Saiyan Rose, he basically was still powerful enough to do a lot of things. To take on Tiamat and then treat her like she was a ragdoll in the water whilst being souped up. He did her dirty, really. I don't even think he needed to kill her in that retrospect. I think he was just too pissed off to deal with any of this shit, so he just killed her outright to take the energy, because this was too big of an issue to keep Tiamat alive. I don't even think Tiamat was that much of a beneficial titan, if I think about it, because Tiamat was more of a destroyer class, whereas Behemoth is more benevolent, but his species was able to grow like the rainforest around South America in a certain sense, as was Skilla. Like, her ice abilities was able to like keep certain aspects of the world frozen so it doesn't like overflow the world. But since we have Shimo now, we don't have to worry about killing Skilla off, basically, since I think he knew that's what was happening in a certain sense. That's why I think he's killed Skilla off, because he's like, okay, we have another creature that can basically freeze anything, so we don't need you, Skilla. Someone else has basically filled the role for you in a certain sense. Harsh, but that's kind of how the king rules his planet, basically, you know. It's Godzilla for you in a certain sense. Does not give a shit. I do love that about Godzilla in this film. Didn't give a shit. I do love how Kong was able to put up a fight against him with the Beast Glove, especially. I'm still questioning the Frostbite, because you cannot cure Frostbite that quickly. I feel like he will need that Beast Glove for the rest of his life, really, because Frostbite does not go away. Like, that stuff will deaden your nerves in a certain sense, so I don't care what serum they have in this film, that does not fix Frostbite that easy. Most Frostbite you have to cut off, or it will like fuck up your entire system, basically. It's just terrible. It's just terrible to have Frostbite like that, and I don't think that serum was enough to do anything about it. But yeah, the whole Egyptian fight was fantastic to see Mothra come in and Gia there, showing the showcase that, you know, Gia is still like more important than we suspected she would be, like in the last film. Not only did she have a relationship with Kong, she is able to, I think, telepathically communicate with these titans, because she was just staring at Godzilla, most likely talking to him. He was probably thinking the same as he looked up at Mothra as to say, is this legit? And then Mothra is there basically saying to telepathically, most likely thinking to him that this is as serious as it's going to get. And that's when you realise that finally we get to see the team up for the century, basically. The three original Titans, yet again, basically coming back together to work together, minus Anguirus. My friend Mark, bless him, he's still upset about Anguirus, and I don't blame him. It would have been nice to be able to see Anguirus. I feel like for the next films, when they get the opportunity, like when they've done with Godzilla's one, you know, is to be able to bring back Anguirus. I kind of want to see like a past version of Godzilla coming across Anguirus and teaming up with him to overcome certain battles. Also meeting Mothra to be able to start that symbiotic relationship. How did it start? How is it going to up to the present day? I would like to see that. I'd like to see that character growth that we've seen with Godzilla, like we've got with Kong. I feel like we've got enough character development with Kong. I feel like he's achieved getting his family. He's got a home. He has like stability and safety now down in the Hollow Earth. He's ruling his like area with the rest of the other Kongs in a certain sense. So it would be nice to get that with Godzilla, because I feel like we don't need to be told that he is basically the balance that the world needs, really, in a certain sense. But it would just be nice to see how it all started. Or hell, I'd like to even see like a flashback of like Dagon versus the, Muto Prime. It would be nice to bring the Muto back in one way, shape, or form. There's even a theory, which I quite like to believe, that because the Muto's eyes look very similar to Gigan, I thought they could do something like making a mechanized Muto version and calling that Gigan in a certain sense, but give it like an ulterior like motive, like a similar acronym to it, like or Mygan or something like that. Who knows? Something to make it look similar to Gigan, but not so much that it's a copy and paste. So it's kind of reliving like the old idea of like bringing back an old kaiju, but it's a new kaiju in a certain sense. It's just a mechanized version of Gigan. Well, Gigan is a robot technically, but it's just a mechanized version of the Mutos, basically, in a certain sense. Not that many character deaths happen, apart from this one Scott. Unfortunately, he was a bit of a hard-headed knob who kind of was like, it's my way or the highway type of thing, so he had to get killed off to add like extra shock value to it. Not much deaths happen apart from the kaijus. Well, I say not much death, but there's quite a lot of deaths when it comes to the Titans roaming around certain areas of like Italy, France, and Egypt, basically. And Gibraltar. That scene in Gibraltar, oh, it's so short. It's such a short scene, but to see Godzilla jump off of that cliff in Gibraltar and dive into the water, most people would think we need some realism, because if he'd have dove in that water like that, he would have snapped his neck or broke something. But no, you can't have realism in these Showa era films, like in this Showa style of filming, because it's the cheese that makes it so much better. And the fact that he suplexed Kong in Egypt was just so funny. It's so good. Sometimes you just need like that, like big old. You ever had that back in the day when you were playing with your like toys and you bash them together? It's like that, it's like that type of fun. It doesn't need realism sometimes. Sometimes you can just like throw realism out the window when it comes to that, especially like when you look at horror films and you're kind of like, oh well, that's not realistic, like this guy being able to like morph his way through the cracks of a wall. What doesn't need to be. It's creepy. It fits the narrative because it's creepy, like how this fits the narrative of Godzilla being able to like German suplex freaking Kong over a freaking like pyramid or something just because it's cool. That's what I love about Adam Wingard. This man is a fantastic director and he knows Godzilla. It's so nice to actually have a passionate, director do what he wants to do. Unlike the 1998 director who really knew nothing and just wanted a whole new take, and he wanted it done his way or the highway. That is a very toxic way of doing things, but it's just so nice with Adam Wingard that he loves his projects that he does, and it's so nice that he's got the funds and the backing to be able to pull more of these films out, basically, because it is a loved franchise over the years that it's been with us since 1954, and it's going now, and even Kong being older, being like 1933. Granted, not the best film, but it still stood the test of time, as hopefully will these MonsterVerse films. The ending was fantastic. Being the one scene where Shimo is basically freed from her position thanks to Suko basically destroying the crystal. That was nice that they added Suko in to basically be a big help, really, People are starting to like little Suko. I'm kind of on the fence about him. I just see him as a glorified nunchuck, basically, especially how Kong used him as a weapon. But yeah, it was just so nice to see Shimo kind of like confused after waking up for God knows how long that he's kept her under his thumb. To look at Godzilla as to say, what's going on? And then Godzilla's like, God damn it, woman, shoot this knob, shoot this ginger knob right now, like freeze him. And it's just so good. It's so good. It's just such fun. So much fun. Right, I will be going to see it this Thursday again. It might be my last time, I'm not so sure. I might go and see it in IMAX, because the other two times I saw it in 2D, I might go and see it in IMAX, basically. Just to really get the whole experience again. It's such a fun experience. It's such a fun film. I can't wait to watch it again. And I cannot wait for more MonsterVerse films. Right, that shall be it. I will now go and have some dinner because I'm starving. And I think I'm going to hopefully call up a couple of mates of mine, see if they want to come and see the film, because more revenue for it, more money, more opportunities to get more MonsterVerse films. Let's go, Adam. You keep on knocking them out and we'll keep on watching that Godzilla goodness. Right, so with that, lads and ladies, I thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. So, with that, thank you ever so much, and take care, my friends.